This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics is bringing you the Living Journey platform. Living Journey is designed to bring to each and every one of us, how does Respectonomics help us in the journey of life? We talked in our previous episode about how the living journey started with a sense that we're on a journey. And where we took ourselves to was to look at the individual responsibility that we each have to turn the light on, to turn the switch on, that when we turn the light on, we therefore exhume darkness. Darkness can no longer exist in the light. And when we turn the light on, then the mirror works. And the mirror, of course, is being able to look up to oneself and looking up, asking one's friends and colleagues and so on, so that you can start looking at the way in which you operate. But we also pointed out that Respectonomics is like a prism. It is designed to be able to take that light and divide it into its component parts. Those component parts, if you remember your school time physics, is that array of light that comes from a single source of white light that then breaks out into this extraordinary this extraordinary array of Roygbiv. Roygbiv stands for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So you have these different colors. And what we wanted to do was to say that if Respectonomics is your prism, then let's take a look at each of these sub-rays, these different wavelengths of light that carry different colors. And we talked about this prism that we're putting up, and our prism suggests that the human light, that when it is divided out, starts with the R, that's the wavelength at the top, and the R stands for, now you might say, well, it stands for red. It does. But in this case, it stands for respect. So we're going to look at the prism of the human being through the eyes through this light that breathes and gives us this one color, which is respect. Now, respect is almost triangular in the way it plays itself out. You may say, what on the earth can you say about triangular respect? And the reason is that just like a step ladder is triangular in shape, it depends on stability. And the respect of the human being is triangular in that the base needs to be set firmly. It also says another part, this triangular message, which is that we as human beings are triangular in our very nature, our very construction. We are made up of the body and the mind and the spirit, so that it is important that when we talk about respect, we are looking at respect from the standpoint of respect for the body, respect for the mind, and respect for the soul. Our job at Respectonomics is to not only to break out these rays of light, the white light, into these different sub-rays, but also to give us an idea of how do I harness that respect? How do I bring it about? And there are several thoughts that go with this. The first one is that respect is triangular from another point of view, in that it is a three-way channel. I suppose a three-way channel doesn't translate into a triangular concept, but it does produce the idea that there are three strands to respect. There is self-respect, there is respect of others, and there is the respect that others give to us. Respect of myself, yourself, respect of another human being, and the respect that that other human being gives to us. So therefore, let's look at this as a subject of great value, because when we respect one another, we then have the ability to bring about the very best of ourselves and the best of others. One of the key components to respectonomics is this. We know that the world is replete with all kinds of nasty problems. There is abuse. There is all, I'm trying to say the word. There's autocracy. There's all kinds of things that are driving wedges into the well-being of our lives. We may say we are overwhelmed. We may say we are distressed. We may say we are despairing. We may say that we feel like we've had our identity stolen. We are suppressed by the internet. We are considered to be units of production rather than a unit of being a human as a human being. Whatever that is, we know that we face these messes in life. And our job at Respectonomics isn't so much to say we can solve the messes. What we can do, and where we enjoy your help and enjoy your participation, is to look at the ways in which we can countermand those fears and those hurts, the suffering, and we can look at within ourselves to our own capacity. And respect is one of the best capacity builders there is. When I respect myself, I am building my own capacity. I am building my potential. I'm building my outlook. I'm building my sense of hope and prosperity. But by respecting myself, I put myself in that position of being able to gather together the threads that are best threads of my own being. Let's take a look at how do you respect yourself? The starting gate is to do it. There's a Nike, I think it is, has that great expression, just do it. And therefore, respecting yourself is an exercise in just doing it. But one of the keys to self-respect is based on education. I want to take education as a standalone subject. Everybody's got their own views on education, whether it's done properly and whether it's technical and whether it's classical and whether it's the arts or whether it's scientific. Taking all that apart, let us hear one thing about education that I read recently, which is this. Education is nothing more than going from an unconscious to a conscious awareness of one's ignorance. Let me say that again. Education is nothing more than going from an unconscious to a conscious awareness of one's ignorance. Most of us would be horrified to be labeled as an article of ignorance. It's a word that is very demeaning and it's not a pleasant word. But it is a word that, in the active sense, probably applies to most of us. And that is when we ignore our potential. Yes, that creates an ignorance, but it's the ignoring, the activity of ignoring, that creates this problem of diminishing and eliminating, perhaps even, our skills and talents. So, what we want to do is to build respect for ourselves. And in building respect of ourselves, we use education as a corridor that will do that. It is the education that releases this understanding of our own capacity and our own potential. One of the great errors in education is that it is seen to be, oh, it must be specific to my life, my work, my style, my whatever. No, education can be enjoyed immensely when you study something that you are intrinsically, inherently attracted to. You might be fascinated by poetry. You might be fascinated by science. You might be fascinated by art. But let me tell you one thing in the sales world that is a frightening truth. And that is in the sales world, if you or I, if we study our product for half an hour a day for 5 days a week. So maybe you're in the business of selling cars, you're in the business of selling stocks, you're in the business of selling information, whatever it is you're doing. When you separately set down time, half an hour a day, 5 days a week, to look at and study your product and your services. It doesn't mean reading the newspaper. It actually means getting into some technical details and finding out more about it. When we do that, the half an hour a day for 5 days a week, that puts us in to the top 5% of decile range of knowledge in the industry. And the great thing about knowledge is when you have that kind of knowledge, aside from the competitive advantage, which sounds a bit commercial, but the greatest advantage is it's motivating. It doesn't matter whether you're studying art or whether you're studying nuclear physics. Just getting into the business of wanting to be educated is something that builds education, it builds motivation, and it's a tool to build respect for yourself. And as we become better educated, we then can find ourselves more able to respect others. We can look at other people and say, she's got something that I didn't realize before. I was listening, I was working on this particular subject, and it starts broadening out or deepening anyway the interest that you can have in another human being. And as we build up our own self-respect, as we build up the respect of another human being, we are going to make ourselves all the more open to receiving the respect from another individual. So there you have it. It's a triangular concept. It is a triangular concept in the sense that we need to have a stable base. We know that this color that we're talking about is R for red, but now we're talking about R for respect. And we are looking through this prism. We are saying respectonomics will bring me not so much the light. You're the only one who can turn the light on. Turn the light on, pick up the mirror, and look at your own life, look at the lives of others, and using respectonomics as your prism to break out the different shades, the different colors that constitute the totality of white light. As we've said before, when you look at a rainbow, which after all is the spectrum of light, when you look at a rainbow, take out one color, any color you like. Take out the green, the red, the orange, just take out one color. The whole rainbow collapses. So we're looking at respect as a foundational and integral part of the way in which we approach and the way we work with other people. Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley is your voice of Respectonomics. I am also your year. So I welcome your inputs and your ideas and so on. This is a really important part of the subject, that humanity is losing respect for itself and you losing respect for one another. And when we do that, we find that the full guy, the weaken, is dignity. And when you take dignity off the table, I ask you one question. Take out the dignity of the human being. What are you left with?